Okay, so let's talk about one of the running backs, and if you want to talk play action, he's having a massive year, Derrick Henry, but he's not the only one. Ty has a question for you.
Yeah, Coach, before the season, when a lot of these guys were free agents, everyone was talking about, hey, the running back position's devalued. No one's really going to want these guys. And then Derrick Henry, obviously we saw what Saquon did last night, and then Josh Jacobs with the Packers, among a couple other guys. We always talk about the NFL being cyclical. Do you think we're back to the point where teams are more focused on, hey, we need to have a dominant rushing attack in order to kind of win throughout the course of a season?
Well, I think it's always best offensively when you have good balance. And look, Derrick Henry's a great back. He's having a great year. So is Barkley. But when you look at the rest of the offense, Lamar is a huge problem. Hurts is a problem. The Eagles have really good receivers. I mean, I know Smith didn't play last night, but their receivers are good. The tight end's good. It's the same thing with the Ravens. Yes, Henry's a big problem. Lamar Jackson is probably even a bigger problem. Andrews is good. They have a lot of speed at receiver with, Flowers and Bateman and those guys. So the balance makes it hard to defend. And if you give it all up on one play on a long pass or a 30, 40-yard pass, that's very discouraging. So you never want to be just too light on that where you just gang up on the running game and then, give up big plays. On the other hand, if you're playing a little more balanced, then, guys like Henry and Jacobs and Barkley and those guys can do a lot of damage. So I think it's really benefited them to be on a well-balanced offense. And that's really what happened when we got Corey Dillon. Corey Dillon, they ganged up on him at Cincinnati. He was about all they had at that time, and it was tough sledding. He ran for 1,600 yards with us, but when you can open up the game and the passing game and have more balance there, it just makes it better for everybody. And when those guys get out in space like Henry and Barkley do, they have the speed and the home run ability to have some 70, 80, 60-yard runs, which is a huge weapon when you can get those kind of big plays out of the running game. You usually don't count on an 80-yard run. You count on 10, 15, here and there when you block things well. But, those guys have the home run ball, and that makes them very, very dangerous.
Yeah, Coach, did you football lifers know that it was impossible for the game to keep going the way it was whenever they were trying to make it wide open, passing only league, seemingly? Rules are being changed, teams are being built differently. Did you football lifers know that the run game inevitably was going to be the most important part and come back to being a focal point?
Well, I'll just say this, Pat. I think every defensive coach, every defensive coordinator, every defensive play caller knows that there's kind of no worse feeling than to, get the ball back for the offense, and then the offense go out there and run 25 seconds off the clock with 3 incomplete passes, and you're back out there again. It's just, AJ, you've been there. You've been on butt, you too. You come to the sideline. And you can't even get your, you can't even get a Gatorade, and you throw 3 incomplete passes and you're back out there, and no time has come off the clock. And so, running the ball, being balanced, bringing the physicality to the game. Like, Detroit's done a great job with that with Coach Campbell and their running backs. They got 2 running backs that are very different, but they're both having a lot of success. They work off each other. It helps golf. Play actions are open. I mean, everybody's being productive. I mean, those things they all work together. But to not run the ball, just go back there and throw it every time and throw incomplete passes. And we saw that last week when teams are trying to going back to the Charger Cincinnati game where those offenses are going out there and throwing 3 incomplete passes and giving the ball back where their opponent now has a chance to score and win at the end of the game. So. That's the defensive perspective.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the managing of the game perspective, let alone like, hey, we can take advantage of them getting smaller linebackers and smaller D-line because they feel like they got to cover more and run. Also, managing the game, we're putting our defense in terrible spots whenever we just throw the ball. Feels like that's becoming football again. And I don't want to say again because it was never that way, but for everybody. Seems like everybody is kind of acknowledging that's the case. Speaking of, the Chiefs have won multiple times now with that adage. They also win close ones. Go ahead, Con Man.
Yeah, Coach, we were talking earlier about how the Chiefs, they win games in very ugly ways sometimes, but they always get it done in the end. Is winning games, especially those close ones, a skill, and is that something you can work on? Obviously, the Chiefs, you could even throw the Vikings in there. The Vikings have won a lot of games very close, even when they've been up, and kind kind of let the other team in. But is that something you can actually work on, or how do you go about, kind of spreading that message throughout your team, letting them know, like, hey, this might be close, but in the end, we will find a way to win?
Yeah, well, I think, look, you practice situational football every week, and you never know what's going to come up with. You're going to have to make a kick to win, return a kick to win, recover an onside kick, or play defense and stop them, or drive and score. I mean, it could be any or all of those. The first three quarters are the first three quarters, but when you get into that fourth quarter in a close game, it's really a lot about situational football. How many possessions do you have left? How do you make the most of those possessions? What do you need? And how do you stop the team? How do they play in those situations too? Do they go to a certain guy or a certain type of coverage or a certain type of pressure or whatever it is? Like, you just have to play. You have to play that final. It could be the final play of the game, the final series of the game, but you have to situationally play that out to win, and be able to execute it. It comes down to a field goal here, but you still have to make it against Carolina. We've seen several the last few weeks where you get in that situation and don't execute the kick. And so everybody understanding that when they're in the game in those situations, everything's dependent on how their team, when I say team, it's a team of teams, whether you're the field goal team, the hands team, the punt return team, kickoff coverage team, whatever it is, that, the game's on the line. This is your opportunity to play at a championship or winning level. And you need everybody to come through on that unit. And I think you saw a lot of that yesterday. It's the kickoff coverage team for Washington. It's the field goal team for Kansas City. It's the hands team in the Bears game. I mean, those units all became very important. Now, I'll just say, I don't know why you would ever kick the ball to Turpin. I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah. That's, to me, this is the same thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing that happened to Cleveland in the opener. They lob it down the middle of the field to him a couple times on punts, and he rips one back on him. Here he muffs it, and so that might have, slowed the coverage down a little bit. But, I mean, you just got really nobody playing off a block, nobody really covering a kick. I mean, it's just terrible. Why you would let this guy touch the ball, look, they hand it to him, that's one thing, but to kick it to him and let him return it, I mean, you're eventually going to pay the price. This guy's just too good.
Special teams all over that game yesterday between the Cowboys and the Commanders. Block kicks, missed kicks, big return. I mean, yes, very massive for both sides. And if you're going to be great, you're going to have to be very sound in the special teams department, which is why we're all pretty jacked up to see kind of how Justin Tucker does tonight for this Baltimore Ravens team. At this point of the season, do we know who everybody is? Do you think we know who everybody is? Like the Niners, they lose big yesterday to the Packers without their quarterback, obviously. But all year it seems like they've been different than what they've been in the past. Then, let's talk to the Lions. Lions are beating the hell out of teams right now. Do you think we know who these teams are at this point? Are we deep enough into this to figure out who we think is going to go and who potentially has no chance?
Well, what were you saying last year about the Eagles when they were 10-1?
Oh, they were going to go win it all. Yeah. They were the best team in football, Coach. They were the best team in football.
I don't think it's really that important what's happened to this point. I think the teams that are still in it, if they play well in the remaining part of the season, they'll be in good shape and they'll have a good chance to win. The Giants did that in both their Super Bowl wins under Coach Coughlin. Tampa did that in 2000. Those are wild card teams that they barely made it into the playoffs, but they played well enough at the end to get into the playoffs and then played well in playoff time. So I think the teams that are in position now, great. Some teams are in better position than others, but really what happens in the remaining few weeks of the season here is going to determine how the seasons turn out. I mean, you look at Dallas last year. They won the division. I mean, they had a really good year. Had one bad game against Green Bay, and everybody thought they had a terrible year. So it really is about what happens from here on out. Now, there's a number of teams, there's a third of the league that are out. Their season's essentially over. Like they have maybe a mathematical chance, but they're out of it. So, and they're already starting to get ready for next year and that type of thing in terms of, playing time, adjusting their roster, maybe claiming guys, things like that to kind of think about next year's roster. But the other 2/3 of the teams are battling it out for those playoff spots. And everything depends on how it goes from here forward, not what happened behind them. It's what's in front of them.
All right, get hot.